Do your teams have a team charter? If they do, which team charter methodology do you follow? There are so many out there. One thing that is clear is that high-performing teams have some form of agreement on how they're going to work together, typically called a team charter. Let's explore that today. So what is a team charter? A team charter is basically an agreement. It's where we have clarity and agreement on how we're going to be together, what we are doing, why we are doing it, etc. And many chartering methodologies are out there. I first started working with some of these back in, I think, 20 years ago, 2002. I also worked with some in my master's degree in 2004, and then I've worked with various iterations with the Ken Blanchard companies over the last 17 years. So what does that all mean? Where does that all come together? What's it all about? And what we've seen is that the idea is to get some sort of an agreement. What are our values? What's important to us, in other words? What are our norms? Who do we have here? What are we here for? Why are we here? How are we going to be together? These are the kinds of things that we put into a team charter. I started to work on a very simplified team charter probably about 7 or 8 years ago. It actually got adopted in some of the Blanchard training, and it was used with one of the major global Blanchard clients for many years. But it was a little bit at odds with how many people view it. And it was at odds for one specific reason, is that I find most team chartering starts with the why, which is good, and then go straight on to the what. Or I've even seen some that ignore the why and go straight into the what, and only later get into the who and the how. And when you're chartering a team, so you've established who you've chosen the team, you've put it together. My sense is that there is an alternate approach that can be very, very useful. And the sequence I use, which has shocked a lot of people, is firstly why. Why do we need this team? Why do we exist? Then who, then how, and finally the last step is the what. Now, people argue with me a lot, but what I find is that in the highest engaged teams, this is the process that works. Why does that process work? Well, it's quite simple. Once we've established the why do we need this team? Why have we created this team? We then have enough clarity to go, okay, for each of you, who are you that you are bringing? What would you like to volunteer to this team? Marcus Buckingham talks about great teams is where people volunteer their strengths to the team. And the sort of accepted norm of do whatever it takes is actually plan B. And so we want to get to the who have we got and what are they bringing as plan A. Then once we've got that, we actually can then very clearly go, so now that we know why we're here and the who's contributing to that why, volunteering their strengths to that why, we can now go on to the how. How do we want to be together? Now we know who we've got. How are we going to leverage each other's strengths? How are we going to be together? How are we going to handle conflict? How are we going to handle decision making? How are we going to handle when accountability? Those are the things we can work on. Once we've got all that in place, we can then go, well, now that we understand all that, what are our milestones? And because we're very clear about our why, we've got the who allocated to the why, we've got the how to achieve the why, we can now add finally the last bits, which is the what, to achieve that why. And that is a very simple process. Now, it's a bit controversial because it focuses on the people before the task, although it is in the context of the overall purpose. So it's not really ignoring the task, but it's focusing on the people. And if you look at teams, virtual teams, hybrid teams, face-to-face teams, what you're going to find is that where the who's are really engaged, the people are really engaged, they understand what needs to happen to achieve the why. So that's a team chartering approach. How does that relate to our quote this week? Well, Marcus Buckingham, in a video series called Trombone Player, he makes the following statement. He says, teams function best when they each know what they can rely on the other people for. And this whole idea of getting to understand, what can I rely on you for? Where might I not be able to rely on you? That is where a team starts to function best. That's why I prioritize the who above the what and the how, but never above the why. The why is precedent. The purpose of the team is critical. Once we know our purpose, we can volunteer our strengths, get to know each other, and see how we can perform best. The next video, which comes up in 2 days' time, I actually give you an example of this and how it really worked for me. So what about your teams? Do you have a team charter? Do you have a written team charter? Do you have clear agreements? One of the things that a team charter does is it reduces the leader's bottleneck, the leader as the bottleneck, because the charter itself, co-created, already builds team spirit and buy-in to that process, and it can guide even if the leader is not available. What about you? What are your thoughts on a team charter? Have you had any successes? Tell us your stories.